Welcome to the Freedom Club Podcast, where we strive to pull you out of your life of quiet desperation, out of your comfort zone of misery, and propel you into a life of freedom and fulfillment. And now, here's your host for this journey, international speaker and coach, and serial entrepreneur, Curt Mercadante.
Happy Friday, everybody. This is the Freedom Club Podcast. I am your host, Curt Mercadante, and if you are truly living the freedom lifestyle, you never use the term TGIF because you don't live simply for nights, weekends, Friday afternoons. You live for every day, and every day you say, thank God it's Monday, thank God it's Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever day it is, because if you are truly living the freedom lifestyle, you are fulfilled every single day of the week. That's not to say you're happy every single day of the week, because I've said before, there is a fundamental difference between fulfillment and happiness. You can be fulfilled and sad. You can be fulfilled and happy. You can be unfulfilled and happy or sad. There were years where I was unfulfilled, but I certainly had happy days. Anytime I was with my wife, my kids, there were other happy days as well. But happiness is fleeting. Fulfillment is something deeper. It's that feeling that you are doing every day what you were put on this earth to do. Are you going to have shitty days? Are people going to get sick? Are people going to die? Absolutely. So you're going to have sad days even if you are fulfilled. That's a long way of saying, I hope your week has been wonderful. And if you don't have that feeling of fulfillment, and if you do live for nights, Fridays, and weekends, then you need to make a change. Something I want to talk about on today's episode that you may need to change as well are your sleep habits. Last year, I took aim at a hashtag campaign called the 5 a.m. Challenge, in which people were tripping and falling all over themselves to post pictures of the fact that they now get up at 5 a.m. and they're at the coffee shop at 5 a.m. and they're working and they're saying, look at me, I'm so productive. That's not productivity. That's just extending your workday. I've talked about this time and again. But I want to talk about sleep specifically today because there are people out there who say, oh, I'll sleep when I'm dead. I operate just fine on 4 to 5 hours of sleep. I feel just fine. Untrue. You're kidding yourselves. And there's several reasons why you need to stop skimping on your sleep. First of all, you need to stop being drunk throughout the day. What do I mean by that? Well, there was a study that shows skimping on your sleep may have the equivalent factor of making you feel like you're buzzed or drunk throughout the day. And by the way, a lot of times when you're buzzed or drunk, there's plenty of people who get in a car, take the keys and get in the car and they say, I'm fine, I'm fine. Just like those same people who get 3 to 4 hours of sleep, they go to work, I'm fine, I'm fine. Here's what Christopher Drake, he's an associate scientist at the Henry Ford Hospital Sleep Disorders and Research Center in Detroit says. He says this, we know from experimental studies that just 4 hours of sleep loss will produce as much impairment as a 6-pack. Yes, a 6-pack of beer. He says if you have a whole night of sleep loss, that's the equivalent to having a blood alcohol content of 0.19. That's illegal to drive with that blood alcohol content. So is skimping on sleep forcing you to experience drunken workdays or worse yet, drunken driving on your commute to work? Stop going through your days drunk. But it can also increase stress and yes, weight gain. The human body has evolved to react to daylight and sunlight. When it becomes dark out, your genes trigger the release of melatonin. It's a hormone into your bloodstream. That promotes sleepiness, allows you to transition to bedtime, sleep throughout the night. In the morning, when daylight hits your body, your genes trigger the release of cortisol, that stress hormone. More on that later, but that stress hormone, in a good way, floods your body with energy to wake it up. But too often, and you know who you are, you spend your night staring at blue light devices like cell phones, tablets, scrolling Facebook, doing all that stuff, aside from getting yourself worked up about politics, the Kardashians, whatever the hell it is. That blue light tricks your body into thinking it's still daytime. It disrupts the normal release of melatonin, and it can disrupt your sleep patterns. And going without sleep on a chronic basis can put your body in a constant state of stress, which chronically elevates your level of cortisol. I did an entire podcast last year on cortisol. Can not only make you stressed out, it leads to insulin resistance. That can lead to sugar cravings, more fat storage, weight gain, diminished energy, and inflammation. And if you remember on my podcast last year, I quoted Christopher Berglund, who wrote in Psychology Today a few years ago that cortisol is public enemy number one. Now, as I said, cortisol, it's triggered by the fight or flight response. So it's obviously a good thing, right? It can cause you to run away. It's evolutionary, right? It's very primal. You know, a lion is chasing you, cortisol spikes, you run the other way, right? You're about to be attacked, you flee or you fight. In the morning, cortisol allows you to wake up. But chronically elevated cortisol levels, according to Christopher Berglund writes, it can interfere with learning, memory, lower immune function and bone density, increased weight gain, blood pressure, cholesterol, heart disease. And he says the list goes on and on. And if you're chronically depriving yourself of sleep, you're causing all those things to happen. And all of the above, your mental, your physical health, the chronic stress, the weight gain, just disrupting your normal sleep patterns, going through the day as if you're buzzed or drunk can obviously lead to diminished performance. Tom Rath, who I talk about often, he's the author of StrengthsFinder 2.0, a wonderful book called Are You Fully Charged? He writes that one of the most influential studies of human performance conducted by Professor K. Anders Ericsson found that top performers sleep 8 hours and 36 minutes per day. The average American, by comparison, gets just 6 hours and 51 minutes of sleep on weeknights. So bottom line, I challenge you starting today, minimum 8 hours of sleep per night. Start setting yourself up for maximum performance. Stop going through your days in a drunken state. Stop chronically elevating your stress hormone. All of the above. Start prioritizing sleep. This has been the Freedom Club Podcast. I am your host, Curt Mercadante. I'll talk to you Monday. Thank you.